What's up, folks? Money Gamer here. Imagine you're grinding through a level in an old school MMO like World of Warcraft, and you hit this glitchy spot where every time you die, you respawn right back in the same trap, losing gear, gold, and time over and over. It's frustrating, right? You know you need to break out, but the cycle just keeps pulling you in. That's exactly what high interest debt feels like in real life, a glitched level that drains your resources and keeps you stuck. Today, we're diving into these debt loops, why they happen, and how to glitch your way out with some smart, patient strategies. Stick around. By the end, you'll see debt not as an unbeatable boss, but as a mechanic you can master. You're in a classic MMO like WoW, and you've stumbled into a buggy quest loop. Every attempt fails, you lose progress, and you're back at square one, wasting hours. High interest debt works the same way. Minimum payments barely touch the principal, interest piles on, and you're trapped in a cycle that feels endless. It's not your fault. The system is designed that way, but recognizing it as a glitch is the first step to breaking free. Let's reframe this problem because most advice out there treats debt like it's just a math equation. Pay more, cut spending, done. But if it were that simple, no one would stay stuck. The common approach fails because it ignores the psychology behind it. We chase quick fixes, like consolidating loans without changing habits, or ignoring the emotional weight of seeing that balance climb despite your efforts. It's like in Elder Scrolls Online, where you might spam the same dungeon run thinking it'll level you up faster, but without adapting your build, you're just burning through potions and repair costs for minimum gains. I get it. I've been there. Back in my early software engineering days, I blew my first paychecks on a new gaming rig, a virtual reality headset, and a new car. I felt like I was unlocking epic gear. Then the pandemic hit, and I had to find another job. It was that gut punch moment that drove me to look at my budget seriously. I had allowed myself to prioritize my wants and dreams over my needs. Years later, I ended up paying off that debt, but not without some guilt, embarrassment, and pain. Normalize this struggle. Debt loops are not a bad sign you're bad with money. They're often the result of life throwing curveballs, job loss, medical bills, or just starting out without a solid foundation. In games like old school RuneScape, you might grind for hours on a skill only to hit a plateau because you skipped some basic quests that would have gotten you there faster. It's the same principle here. Society pushes consumerism, credit cards dangle easy access, and before you know it, you're in a loop where interest eats more than you can feed. Now, let's get into the deep explanation of how these debt loops really work. At its core, high interest debt, think credit cards at 20 to 30% APR or payday loans even higher, they create a repeating cycle through compounding. It's like a debuff in a strategy game that stacks over time. You borrow $1,000 at 25% interest, make the minimum monthly payment of, say, $25 a month, but most of that goes to interest, not even the principal. Next month, interest calculates on the barely reduced balance and it snowballs. Psychologically, this taps into behavioral biases like present bias. We prioritize today's relief over tomorrow's cost. It's why we swipe for that impulse buy, telling ourselves we'll pay it off later. Think about it in terms of a game like Satisfactory, where you build factories to produce resources. If your setup is inefficient, say your smelters are bottlenecks, your output grinds to a halt and you end up scavenging just to keep things running. Debt does that to your finances. High interest acts like a resource leak, pulling from your income before you can build anything else. Real life example, a friend of mine racked up $5,000 on a card for essentials during a rough patch. He paid his minimums for years, but the balance hovered around the same because interest kept adding up. It's exhausting. That constant strain leads to stress, which can trigger more spending as a coping mechanism, buying takeout or a new game to feel better, only to deepen the loop. Another layer is the opportunity cost. While you're feeding the debt beast, you're missing out on compounding in your favor, like investing in a retirement account. In Crusader Kings 3, if you're constantly putting down rebellions because of poor early decisions, you never get to expand your kingdom. Debt works similarly. It locks you in survival mode, preventing you from building wealth. Let's tie in a board game story here. If you've ever played Settlers of Catan, you've probably seen this, and it's probably even happened to you. During a game night with my friend group a couple years ago, I had all the resources to upgrade my two settlements to cities and win the game in the last turn. Everybody in the table saw it coming, and we were starting to wrap up. It got to my turn, and I rolled a 7. If you play the game, you know that half your resources go away to a robber when you roll a 7. And we all laughed until we realized that's exactly how life works. The most likely bad roll will happen. That night changed how I think about preparation. In debt terms, that 7 is an unexpected expense, like a car repair or medical bill, that hits when you're already stretched, forcing you to borrow more and reset progress. But the thing is, it's going to happen. At some point, that 7 is going to get rolled, and you have to have planned for it, or else you're going to fall into this debt cycle. Behaviorally, these loops thrive on isolation too. We hide the struggle, avoid talking about it, which amplifies our shame. But remember, millions are in the same boat. Average credit card debt in the US is over $6,000 per household. It's systemic, not just personal. In MMOs like Star Wars: Old Republic, solo queuing for tough content often leads to wipes because you're missing group synergy. Debt feels solo, but sharing stories or seeking advice can provide that boost. Here's the aha moment. Debt isn't a personal failure. It's a designed mechanic like a stacking debuff in an MMO that punishes without strategy. Shift your view. See it as a resource drain you can plug. Instead of fighting the symptoms, target the source. High interest is the glitch. By prioritizing payoff on the highest rates first, you can break the cycle faster than scattering payments everywhere. It's that reframe that turns overwhelm into a winnable quest. This brings us to the turning point, the mindset shift that changes everything. The insight here is realizing debt loops are winnable with patience and strategy, not brute force. Stop seeing debt as a moral failing and start treating it like a game mechanic. Understand the rules, then exploit them. In Mountain Blade, you don't charge into battle without scouting. Rushing debt payoff without a plan leads to burnout. Instead, embrace long term thinking. Freedom comes from consistent, small wins that compound. For me, when a big career uncertainty hit last year, my emergency fund and dedicated upskilling budget let me calmly dive into Python and generative AI instead of panicking. It turned a potential setback into a real upgrade. That showed me education and growth deserve a spot in the budget. After food, housing, and medicine, but definitely before extra takeout and vacations. Applying this to debt, once I reframed it as building a defensive foundation, like in a Total War game, where I used to restart constantly because I'd rush fancy building upgrades instead of basic armies and defense. I'd get crushed early. It felt exactly like getting hit with a surprise dishwasher or water heater bill with zero cash buffer. Once I forced myself to build a solid defensive foundation first, the early game became fun instead of stressful, and it set me up to dominate in the middle game. That's when I realized an emergency fund is the same thing. You don't optimize your 401k until your base is secure. This shift frees you emotionally. Suddenly, decisions feel empowering, leading to true long term freedom where money works for you, not against you. Want a specific tip to escape debt loops? Try the debt snowball method with a twist. List debts smallest to largest, ignoring inches for momentum. Pay minimums on all but the smallest, throw everything extra at it. Once cleared, roll that payment to the next. It's like clearing side quests in an RPG to gain XP boosts. I use this to knock out $3,000 in old debt. The quick wins kept me motivated. Start today with just one small debt, watch the cycle break. Now for practical takeaways. Start small and focus on progress over perfection. First, track your debts. List your balances, your rates, and your minimums. It's like doing inventory management in an RPG. You have to know your resources. Then build a bare bones budget. Track your essentials first, which is your rent, your food, and your transport, then your debt. Cut one non essential, like your streaming subs you barely use, and redirect it. And look, I still get tempted during Steam sales. I'm still just a gamer. But now I run every game through a quick question. Is this going to cost me $10 per hour of enjoyment or 1 cent per hour of enjoyment? That filter saved me from buying trendy TikTok bait and kept the money for games that I'll actually replay and continue to come back to, like old school strategy titles. Apply this to spending. Pause 24 hours before buying anything over $50. Next, explore options like balance transfers to lower interest, but read the fine print, no shortcuts. And build that emergency fund simultaneously, even if it's $20 a paycheck and a high yield savings. Right now, my emergency fund is at 6 months of expenses. feeling like walking into Dead Mines and Hardcore WoW with a strong team, potions, and a Hearthstone off cooldown. I maintain it by monthly reviewing my expenses, engaging when to put more money into the emergency fund. In the meantime, it's even better than my WoW scenario because it's sitting in a high interest savings account at a 4% return. It's kind of like my potions are making more potions. If overwhelm hits, talk to a nonprofit credit counselor. It's free and judgment free, like joining a guild for raid tips. In closing, remember, debt loops are tough, but they're not the end game. You've got the skills from all those hours grinding in games: patience, strategy, and resilience. Apply them here, and you're gonna break free, feeling that quiet confidence of a well built empire. Thanks for hanging out, folks. If this resonated, hit like, subscribe for more gaming twists on finance, and comment your biggest debt glitch below. I read them all. Catch you next time.